at the outset, you might wonder why you'd be talking about Google Ads in an SEO meetup. Mike would be the first person to tell you that there's a lot of cross-pollination between especially Google search, but other like advertising and SEO. They are not competitors with each other. They're not separate from each other. They're very much intermingled in terms of what they can do for you and when you use each.
Question. In January, we noticed that Google had changed some major considerations around paid and organic, and like how they, like AdWords especially, and how they interact with your like page's performance and visibility. Can you elaborate on those? Because their description of what they changed was very vague.
In terms of how organic results like stack up with paid results?
Yeah, well, they were basically saying that if a page has AdWords, like basically if it's rich in keywords, but it's like words that you're like paying for, like bidding on, then technically the Google will kind of ignore those pages a little bit more. But we noticed the opposite was true. Like their performance was actually doubled on these terms that we're like paying for, but also organically placing like on our pages. So our visibility's bumped up like 300% since January, which is insane.
That's interesting. There was a big algorithm change in January, so it's really hard to draw kind of conclusions just yet. Everyone's still freaking out. Back me up on this. But as far as paid affecting organic, I don't know about that specifically. I haven't heard anything, but Google has always been very clear, at least their public-facing message has been, paying for keywords has no effect on organic results in terms of, you know, dollar, like comparing them directly. Now, there's indirect results from that, and I'm going to actually get into that at the very end about bidding on your own brand, which is something that is the most closely tied thing with Google search, paid and organic. But yeah, I'll get into that. But no, to my knowledge, there's no direct correlation yet. That would be very dangerous for them to get into that, because then it would become, now they already kind of play that way. The whole brand, bidding on your own brand keyword is a very sticky subject for a lot of people.
It could be because we're using paid to promote content that's keyword heavy, so that might be what's affecting it as opposed to directly the keywords themselves.
I think you could potentially, if you were driving a lot of traffic to a content page through paid keywords, and then you started seeing more organic, you could be getting a little bit of authority from that because you're driving traffic.
Gotcha.
And if the traffic stays, and so it's a quality page, you could be actually improving your organic results through paid sort of indirectly, but the content still has to exist. So it's not like you're paying for organic traffic, you're just doing something well on one side which helps the other side as well.
Yeah, that's usually what's going on.
That would be my guess, but
it's working a lot better now than it was before.
Good?
Which is really good, yeah. We were just like wondering how we can start to like capture that lightning in a bottle and keep it. So,
if we could do that, we'd all be rich. So talking about Google Ads with SEO, I'm going to get into this more, but anybody who knows anything about Google Ads it's way too big of a topic to cover in 15 minutes. I mean, I could talk about this for 15 hours. But today I just want to kind of introduce Google Ads. I don't know anyone's familiarity with Google Ads, so this is going to be extremely basic. I'll go through it if everyone's feeling pretty comfortable, but this is basically this is what Google Ads is. There's a $150 credit available for new accounts, and this is how you can basically get that and get started. I'm not really going to go into like things like strategy and things like that because that would require a whole separate talk, but we can talk about that. So about me, I'll skip over this pretty quickly, but I've been an ads user professionally since about 2014. Analytics and ads certified since that time. So cumulatively I've managed millions of dollars in search, display, and YouTube, mostly in search, but a good amount of display in YouTube as well, for all kinds of clients, from small and medium-sized businesses, orthodontists, insurance brokers, all the way up to like billion-dollar B2B enterprise SaaS companies, regional startups. I've done a little bit of nonprofit work. Interesting thing, if anybody is a nonprofit or works with a nonprofit, there's a possibility for free Google Ads money for you, which I can talk about separately afterwards if you'd like. But there's a big opportunity there, and a lot of nonprofits don't know about it and don't take advantage of it. So Google Ads is formerly known as AdWords. A lot of people still call it AdWords. Gentlemen there still call it AdWords. That's still common, but Google's really trying to move the needle on getting that people to call it Google Ads, like the entire product. So Google Ads is 4 main products. There's other kind of sub-products there too, but you've got search ads, which everyone's familiar with. Display ads, which you may or may not know is actually coming from Google when you're browsing the web. They're the largest, I'm pretty sure, they're the largest inventory of display ads on the web. Video, that's mostly YouTube, but it is branching out into other partner sites as well. And shopping, which you may or may not have come into contact with. That's something that Google is pushing hard to, like e-commerce websites. They are sometimes friends with and sometimes enemies with Amazon on that front, because Amazon's probably the largest Google shopping customer for obvious reasons, but Amazon's also trying to spin up their own shopping ads network as well. So they're sometimes fighting and they're sometimes friends. It's really interesting. So I'll briefly talk about each one just in case you don't know what the products are. So this is an example of what a search ad currently looks like. This has changed multiple times over the years. So one of the most expensive generic search ad terms is insurance. Insurance terms are generally the most expensive. The other one, it would be law services, especially like injury law, and like in the United States, terms like mesothelioma, stuff like that, like stuff you see on Price is Right. When you're watching The Price is Right, you see those lawyer ads. Those are the most expensive search terms. Why? Because they're so profitable for the companies who bid on them, and there's so much volume for them as well. So this is what a search ad typically looks like. It will appear above organic search results. That will become important, so we'll circle back to that. But you'll see on some of these, on the first one there, Scotia Home Insurance, you'll see a phone number on there. That's what's called an extension. So you can add additional things to your, I mean, it's not really a SERP, but I guess it's kind of a SERP. You can add additional information to your ad that helps you stand out from even organic results. So there's more available in a lot of ways for paid search ads than there are even for organic results. So even if you are not planning on doing a whole lot of like a big paid campaign, for example, it's worth doing just the kind of table stakes of a basic search campaign. Display advertising, everyone's familiar with display advertising. A lot of people call it banner ads. That's still mostly true. The classic banner sizes are still the most popular. This here is a form of skyscraper ad. In the top right corner of this ad over here, this is from the Washington Post, top right corner of this ad you'll see 2 icons. There's a little arrow and then a little X. Whenever you see that blue arrow, that means that's an ad served through the Google Display Network. So that's available to you, even a small advertiser. You can be on the Washington Post. You just have to basically pay for it. There's a lot of other things that play here, but the Google Display Network is available to absolutely everyone. You do not have to make a separate deal. You don't have to call up the Washington Post and buy inventory directly with them. You can be on the Washington Post no matter how small you are. And this ad could be seen by just people in Nova Scotia or just people in Halifax, for example. So you don't have to waste impressions showing ads to people in Ontario or New York or Kansas or California or whatever. This can be highly localized and targeted, but the inventory is incredible. The size of the inventory, we're in the billions and billions and billions of web properties. So this is their video product, which again, anybody who uses YouTube has seen this. Before almost every video that plays now, you will have to watch at least 5 seconds of an ad. There's lots of different possibilities here. Some of them can be, there's unskippable ads, there's bumper ads, which are 6 seconds, and then there's longer. This is a typical 30-second ad. Likely the agency here had a TV spot that they just basically put on YouTube. After 5 seconds, you can skip it. This is available to all advertisers as well. YouTube inventory is also obviously massive. There's a whole bunch of problems with YouTube, which I don't have time to get into right now, but from an awareness perspective, if you have money to spend, this is a great option that is available to you, whereas television might not be. Television is extraordinarily expensive. YouTube, you can get into YouTube for a few grand, no problem, or less. And this is shopping. Shopping is ever changing on Google. Sometimes if you search for something that's a clear product like running shoes, it will appear, some shopping ads will appear in the regular organic results. It'll be these boxes with prices and things. You can see that sometimes. They also have their own tab, which is what I've done here. They have a shopping tab. These can be promoted. Basically, if you have an e-commerce platform on your website, you can feed that data stream into Google. and you can advertise your products when people are searching for, whether it's the specific product name or categories like running shoes or, what have you. The options here are pretty limitless. The only real barrier to entry is you need to have a modern e-commerce platform, which you should really have anyway. And then the second barrier is you have to be willing to ship. So this won't affect anybody who just runs a local store or someone who only ships to a specific area or something like that. You need to have a couple of things in place to take advantage of this. So this is about the $150 credit. So if anybody doesn't know, Google does offer several different credit options. The most popular is, I think, they will match $150 of spend. So to get $150 credit, you have to spend $150, but they'll match it, and so effectively you've got $300. This is available to anyone who doesn't currently have a Google Ads account. If you have a Google Ads account that you signed up for, eons ago, you can sign up for, a new account. Especially if you've got a newer business or something like that. This is for new accounts only. I have some links in this presentation. We'll put this on the group channel on LinkedIn so that you can actually click these links later. But you can also just Google Ads credit and it will be there. They're also running a big campaign on social right now. I've seen a lot of Instagram ads that are advertising for this Google Ads credit. So matching credit to $150, they'll apply it to, this gets applied to future costs, so it's not like you get to start with Google's money right away. You do have to put in some of your own to start with. You have to use the $150 within 3 months, so there's some considerations there. You can't be not spending any money and make this last for years and years. It's got to be used in 3 months. Might not be a problem for you. And they're not going to give you any warning when your credit's about to be used up. So if you're spending it like crazy, they won't tell you, hey, you're going to start dipping into your own money here again in a couple days. They're not going to warn you. They're just going to start charging you. So you have to watch your spends very carefully. So how to get started with Google Ads. Sign up for an account, enter a promotional code, and you're off to the races. Again, there's a lot more complicating factors to actually getting a campaign going, but we don't have time to get into that today. But a couple of points that I wanted to make were you want to make sure that you have your Google Analytics account linked. This is because, in my opinion, there's no point in running a Google Ads campaign of any kind, whether it's display or search or video or anything like that, unless you can track your business goals on the other end. So for example, you set up a search campaign for your brand name, for example. You want to know what the quality of that traffic is. You want to know if someone's searching for your gym, for example. You want to know if they're coming to the website and booking an appointment or calling through the number or doing some other objective that you think is valuable, because you need to know if the traffic you're paying for is worth it on the other side. This gets pretty complicated pretty quickly, but at the very least you want to be able to measure and separate your paid traffic from your organic traffic, because you want to know what's valuable, who's doing what. Same thing with if you've got different keywords and different groups running, you need to be able to measure them against each other. So you might say okay, well our the kettlebells group is performing generally better than the personal trainer group, and so we should invest more heavily there. Those are types of considerations that you can do. And then the third point is obviously, again, since I don't have time to get into things today, there's a lot of reading you have to do. Google Ads I'm not going to lie, it's an insanely complicated and risky platform. You can spend an unlimited amount of money and do so almost accidentally. So you want to make sure that you know kind of what you're doing getting into it. The first place to start, that first link that I've listed there, that's Google's own certifications. The certifications themselves, it's questionable whether they're valuable or not, but the coursework is really good. They take you through the platform, they show you how everything works. Doing analytics and ads is a great way to start if you're even thinking about doing your own. And even if you're working with a consultant, for example, it's good to know who you're talking to and whether they know their stuff and whether they're doing good work for you. So that's a key first one I think for anybody that's thinking about doing this. And then I listed a couple other kind of third parties. SEMrush is a great third party product for SEO and ads. They have their own ads academy, great stuff there. And then HubSpot's blog is a really good wealth of information for whether you use HubSpot or not. It's not everything's about HubSpot. They have a great thing about they have a great write-up on here's what ads is and here's how to get started with it. It's one of the best that I've seen, and it's kind of tailored towards beginners. So really quickly, I'm going to go through this because I'm running out of time here, but I wanted to talk about bidding on your brand. So this is something in my work that I've seen a lot. I recommend this to almost all my clients. This is a controversial subject because there's a lot of business owners who are not really pleased that Google makes you bid on your own brand. Like, the logic should be, my brand name belongs to me. I should always be at the top when someone's searching for my brand name. And in a world where capitalism doesn't exist, that's the way it should work. But unfortunately, that's not the way it works. And what can happen is, if someone bids on your brand name, they can make their ad appear above your brand. That's the worst case scenario. That's not always the case. There's lots of other reasons to do it, and I'm going to go through one of those reasons right now. So, a friend of mine runs a pinball repair and restoration company locally here in town called FlipperTech Pinball Repair and Restoration. So he's got a website. It's flippertech.com. He also is on social, and he does a few other things too. And so he's just getting started. His business is a little over a year old. When you search for his brand locally, this is what you get. And so a couple things to notice here. One, which Michael noticed the first immediately before anything else, he doesn't have his business claimed on Google My Business. That's an SEO thing. He's working on fixing that. But the other thing you'll notice here is before his website even appears, it's his Instagram. Not totally useless. It is his Instagram. So it goes his Instagram, his website, and then his Facebook page. Having Instagram appear first isn't the end of the world. It's still his brand. But on his Instagram, it's not as easy to contact him. There's no contact form. There's no information kind of about like exactly what he does. It's just photos and things that he's working on. So he'd probably prefer to have his website there. But at the moment, his website doesn't have the authority that his Instagram page does. He can fix that over time through SEO work and adding content, and as his domain gets more authority. But the quick and easy fix that he could do today is he could start bidding on his own brand name in Google Ads. So if he had an account here, which he could sign up, he's never used Google Ads, so he could get that $150 credit. One of the first things he could do is bid on a couple things in the local area, like basically he works province-wide. So he could bid on his own brand name, and then what would happen is he'd have an ad kind of like this. So FlipperTech Pinball Repair and Restoration, Pinball Arcade and Repair, and then a little sales message, which again, as Mike pointed out in what we were talking about earlier, you get to custom craft that. It's not pulled in from somewhere. Yes, you can edit the meta description on your website, but with ads, you can change it instantly, and you can test different messaging and things like that. So, and this can point to anywhere. Yes, it can point to his website, but it could point to a sales landing page, or it could point to a specific page that he finds converts better. So, bidding on your own brand name can be extremely valuable, and you can pay less because it's your brand name. So you have the best ad quality, which is something I didn't have time to get into, but it's basically how Google sets prices. So that's a great place to start on Google Ads for search if you're just getting started and you want to use that $150 credits. So how much time do we have?
You're pretty good, man.
Yeah.
1 minute over. You got 10 minutes for questions?
Okay. Anybody have any questions? That could be about something on this or just ads questions in general.
Or even how it relates to SEO.
Yes.
Let's
connect it all back.
Peripheral on this, but like Matt was saying, SEO is a long game, and paid when you're working with ads, you basically pay to play, so you can bump yourself up in the immediate. So the short term, it's a good initial play, especially if you have something that you're trying to stew up in the SEO world for the long play. So just a way to think about it, and why we wanted to talk about paid a little bit today.
It's also something that you scale with time. So it's about putting your toe in the water and then scaling and tracking. It's not something, neither one of these is something that overnight changes.
No.
It's really like augmenting, it's really all coming together, and it's about scaling.
Yep. And a key part of that, as I mentioned,
is people care.
A key part of that is testing and measuring. Like I said, with connecting it to Google Analytics, I've worked with a lot of clients who have some form of display advertising either through Google or through somebody else, but they don't have any way to connect it to their data coming in from their website. So they are putting money into a black box and they don't know what they're actually getting back out of it, which is not ideal. And one of the great things about digital advertising, including Google Ads, is you can measure everything. So take advantage of that. You buy a billboard, you can't exactly measure that. Not to say it's useless, because it definitely has its uses. You put it out in a newspaper, again, or a magazine, something like that, it's great. But you can't measure those results directly unless you do certain things. But with Google Ads, you can measure everything. And so you can then look at your website analytics and you can say, here's how our paid traffic compares to our organic traffic, or here's how our paid traffic compares to our email traffic from our newsletter. And you can start to make real decisions about, what's our process like on our website? What do users, do? What are valuable actions? What should we be doing more of? Like, what content works well in terms of like converting to people calling us or filling in forms or what have you. There's lots of stuff that you can do once you pay for some traffic to get a little bit of, to actually start collecting data. It's valuable.
I know, just because of the way we track, so we're in software business. Anything that comes to organic closes at a 50% rate. So it's fantastic when I can actually track channel by channel. The interesting part is, even if they come in organic, we now do remarketing or retargeting, so we use those display ads, and that also helps with the awareness bit of it. So it's kind of, to my point earlier, it's about all of it coming together and creating a machine that helps.
That's right. Yeah, but you can't really just do one thing. A lot of people will focus on SEO because it's free, which Michael will say it's not free.
It's definitely
not free. It's extraordinarily expensive, but and a lot of people overlook ads because they're like, well, I don't want to pay for traffic, but it's not quite that black and white. Yes,
I did have a question.
Sure.
With regards to like domain authority, because we've noticed that we have significantly like higher domain authority than our direct competitors, like almost double. But there's one or two of them that consistently outperform us in like visibility. So how come those two things aren't necessarily like linked? Like, if we have that much more domain authority, how come we're not automatically more visible, aside from the X factors of what they're doing on the paid side of things?
So you're talking about organic visibility organically?
Yeah, and domain authority.
Checking out.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, what I found with domain authority, one thing to really consider, it's not a Google metric.
Mm-hmm.
It's there used to be something called PageRank, named after Larry Page, not actually associated to the page. It's a score of 1 to 10, and people got really obsessed about it. So Google got rid of it. There's rumors that it's still an internal metric. They just don't publish the information now. So tools like Moz or Ahrefs use a domain authority score based on the way that they used to score with PageRank. They just take a pile of factors, mostly backlinks, to determine what this score should be. Okay. So you're doing it right, where, like I always say, don't try to grow domain authority. Look at the competition and try to have a stronger domain authority. But then also not to get obsessed about the domain authority. And when you're looking at individual queries, look more at the page authority in relation to the comparison, and it's not comparison, in relation to the competition. So you're more drilling it down to, like, why is this blog post not doing well? Why doesn't this product page that's specific to this one product that we have not performing for this for the competition? Maybe that competition has got a higher authority for this individual product page than it necessarily has for its domain overall. That domain overall could be driven a lot by brand awareness. If they've just got a more of a, because the homepage is driving it, the homepage is generally driven from brand awareness more than it is from like an individual service offering, unless they have just one product or service. So that's kind of the way I think about authority and try to tell people. Like, we rarely use it as a metric to report to clients, but we do use it in a strategy to understand what pages are doing better, and then use those pages that are doing better and look at what's backlinking to them and try to see if there's any gaps there that you can take advantage of. If they're providing a poor page, develop a better page, and then let people know you developed a better page. Because if you build it, they won't come. You got to build it and show it to them, push it in their face a few times, and then put some ads behind it. And
Yeah. It's exactly what I was going to say. Like those things where you have better authority, but you're not always beating them on visibility. There's a quick and easy fix for that, and it's pay. Now, you have to know whether those terms are actually going to convert to, like in your case, whether it's demos or trials or in a perfect world, sales. But that's the type of thing. If you have no data on that, it's a great time to experiment, because you can beat them on the paid side of things, Absolutely, especially because if your authority's good and the content's on the page, you can get a really high. I mean, quality score is not really a thing anymore, but like, yeah, you can get a high quality score. And which means you pay less and you show up for more impressions. So if the page or term that you're bidding for that goes to the page is like of really high quality, you can still beat them every time. At least until you get there, you can maybe improve results organically with some other efforts that you're doing. But like paid can be a great gap filler. And if the term you're talking about or the page you're talking about is a great sales page, I mean, there's no reason, if you're getting a really good return on ad spend, there's no reason why you shouldn't be pumping every dollar you possibly can into that page.
Yeah, that's sort of what we're
exactly. As long as you can track everything, like you get to a point where as long as you can meet the demand for your, like if it's a software product, well, it's not so bad. As long as you can meet the demand and the page is converting and you always pay less per acquisition than the lifetime value of the customer, you take every dollar you possibly can and put it there. Because if it's working, obviously, that's where you should be investing your money.
With like attribution as well, it seems to be a trend nowadays that people will see an ad and not click on it.
100%.
But they'll go and search it.
Yeah.
And so we'll get like direct traffic as like, that's where they're coming from. But obviously people don't just psychically know what your company's called and just like,
Yeah.
so they've seen it somewhere. So it's like,
A lot of your organic traffic works that way too.
yeah, exactly. So
But it's an unknown kind of quality. Attribution is a whole thing where, like, it's not a solved problem yet.
Yeah, we've noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Google Ads. I guess one last thing. So Google Ads and analytics, another reason to connect them together beyond all the data you can share between the two platforms. But one of the things that you get when you link them together is slightly better attribution. Attribution is still obviously insanely difficult to nail down, but like you do get some kind of score of, if you've got a conversion that's maybe a trial sign up or a demo sign up or something like that, you'll get an attribution like score of some kind on that display ad if they use the same device and they, as long as the user was possibly tracked, it will give you something.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you don't connect them at all, you get nothing, and you have no idea.
We're talking to our like finance department, and they're like, okay, well, where can we allocate budget? We want to allocate budget to like things that are proven to be effective. And they're like, so these channels have these numbers attached to them, and it's like, well, no, like this channel probably has a lot more because they're all attributed as like direct traffic. So that direct traffic literally will sit in all these other channels as well. So you have to assume that direct traffic just kind of doesn't exist. But that's what it's being called when you don't know where they found out about you from.
Yeah, so there's definitely a black box factor to direct
Yeah.
traffic. Like, some direct traffic can be a lot of employees, and it can be a lot of other internal emails or sales team emails. Like if someone sends if a sales team member sends an email to a prospect and it's got a link to a particular product page or something like that, that can be direct traffic. So it's not, but yeah, so that's one big source of direct traffic for sure, plus a lot of internal traffic. Even if you've got your own IP blocked, people go home, people use devices like on the LTE network or whatever, so direct traffic's a bit of a black box, but there are attribution models. Google's working to improve those. I think they're one of the better ad platforms that have better attribution. In my experience, the other big ones like Facebook and stuff haven't really nailed that down yet because they don't connect as well with your analytics.
It would be lovely to know if somebody comes in direct has had an ad appear in front of them, regardless of clicking on it.
Yep. That's possible today. It's just there are a lot of factors at play that make that difficult, and the biggest one is nobody has one device anymore.
Yeah.
Everyone has 3 plus. So 3 to 5 I think is the current stat. You've got a computer at work, you got a computer at home, you might have 2 computers at home, you have your phone, you might have a tablet too. There is work in progress of trying to link cross-linking of devices. It's not perfect yet, it's probably far from it, but if you've got attribution set up on your ads and it's linked to analytics and the user was tracked, it will score it.